All right, welcome back, Free Radicals. My name is Dave. This is the Radical Independent. Yes, indeed. Tulsi Gabbard continues to defy the establishment. She continues to run a counter-narrative to everything they are trying to do, whether it's impeach Trump for flimsy reasons, or it's this tribalist notion that you can't have conversation, you can't have speech. Look, I don't think what Donald Trump does on Twitter is at all productive. I think he has done something, though, for free speech, which is really important, because he's communicating directly with the people who support him. Now, recently, our friend Kamala Harris has come out and issued a challenge to Jack from Twitter to ban Trump from Twitter. Folks, look, we're getting to a tipping point where if you don't like what I say, rather than turning the channel, clicking out of just, it's a simple mouse click, people, right here. Okay, Kamala, pretty simple device here. You click and you leave. All right, and by the way, conservatives were railing on this a couple of years ago. And then, of course, you have Alex Jones, who got banned, and some folks have had some strong opinions about that. I don't think anybody should get banned from speaking, unless you're, of course, inciting a riot and you're, yelling fire in the crowded theater, that type of thing. I don't understand why people are so afraid of words. You don't have to listen to the words if you don't want to. Now, Tulsi Gabbard was asked about this thanks to the show The Rising, or Rising, which is probably, other than Jimmy Dore, probably the coolest internet show right now. And I've noticed that there's a different temperament that the people have who watch this show as opposed to watching some tribal nonsense on CNN or MSNBC. Those channels are banking on the fact that you're angry about Trump, but you really don't give a crap about what we're doing in Syria. They don't really care about what's happening in Flint, Michigan. They're not all that concerned that these large agribusinesses are putting farmers out of business. I mean, there are issues all over the place that you could go one after another that typically don't get any coverage. So, again, and I've said this before, and other people have said it probably more cogently with a better articulation, but we are basically being controlled. And the controllers want us to fight about things that keep us distracted and away from the big issues. And Tulsi Gabbard, I think, rightly responds. I did a video a while back, way back, talking about how she was truly the only free speech candidate. She's not actually calling for, fake news CNN to go away. She understands that these people have a right to spew the stuff they're spewing. But on the other end of the spectrum, she's not down with just banning Donald Trump from Twitter. And Twitter, as far as a business model, if they did that, it would be one of the dumbest things they've ever done. Okay, because there are a lot of progressives that follow Trump in order to retweet what Trump says to say, hey, this is the dumbest thing he's ever said. So shutting down that would be stupid for the progressive movement. It would be, it's just a ploy on her, by her team, one last Hail Mary pass to try to keep her campaign relevant. Tulsi Gabbard, though, smartly, is having none of it.
I think freedom of speech is something that is an important foundational right in our democracy. I think that the things that are coming from Donald Trump are things that are inciting a lot of divisiveness in our country, though, and this is one of the many reasons why I believe it's important that voters vote to defeat Donald Trump.
Senator Warren, really easy one. Should Donald Trump be banned from Twitter?
No.
All right.
All right, so Elizabeth Warren, who, it's weird because isn't she fundraising off of Trump's impeachment? So, I mean, it's a bit of a contradictory thing, but she does answer correctly. And obviously Tulsi Gabbard, though, talks about free speech. Because I think Elizabeth Warren knows that, banning people maybe isn't a good idea. Although I think a lot of her supporters would say otherwise. Whereas, look, the Tulsi Gabbard supporter is far more, I'm going to just say this, I don't care if people like it or not. The Tulsi Gabbard supporter is far more sophisticated than most voters. And yeah, I'm patting myself on the back. All right? The reason I'm saying this is because, number one, we care about foreign policy and we understand that everything flows downhill from foreign policy. As much as we care about domestic policy, we understand there are just not going to be the resources available if we continue on with the current foreign policy. By the way, if you're concerned about the national debt, which nobody talks about anymore, you really need to support Tulsi Gabbard. Now, you might say, well, the Republicans and so-called fiscal conservatives who blow a hole in the deficit, that's the old phrase they used to use, which kind of doesn't make sense, because if you're blowing a hole in something, that thing tends to leak out and go away. But that's a phrase that they've been using for a couple of decades. If you're blowing a hole in the deficit by increasing the military budget and not even looking at that, then you're really not concerned about it. And that's where the Republican Party failed me and so many other people. And then I realized, well, not only are they fiscally irresponsible, but they're really not directing the resources where they could. If this is our country and we believe in sovereignty and taking care of one another, and there are better angels that kind of operate on people's shoulders, which I'm not sure if that is the case anymore, because it's all really based on greed and who can lobby the hardest and so forth. But if you believe in those things, you would say, well, the people should come first in our country. But they don't. Remember, Trump ran on something called America First? That's funny. Venezuela first, Iran first. And when I'm talking, I'm not saying he's loving on these countries. Although Saudi Arabia, yeah, that one you could say Saudi Arabia first. This is a tough one to say for a lot of people. Israel first. Look, again, I know supposedly Saudi Arabia and Israel are our allies, but that's not America first. So Tulsi Gabbard really is she's a thorn. She's an absolute thorn to the entire establishment because she doesn't go along with the MSNBC talking points. And she answers a lot of these questions by waving the United States Constitution around, which quite honestly scares a lot of people on the left because they see the Constitution as a flawed document. But here's what's happening. It's kind of like the pendulum has swung so far that when you look at the Constitution as written, and if you actually obeyed most of what's in there, and we can have arguments about things like, I don't know, birthright citizenship and so forth, it is in there, and that's when the people who go, okay, well, I'm for that because it's in the Constitution. They want to use it to support an argument like that. All right, and we can argue about that, and we can have a friendly agreement or disagreement. But when it comes to free speech, nope. See, I'm not old school liberals. Okay, the old school liberals used to always tell me, free speech because they were fighting for things like, in the old days, they wanted to be, they wanted to be able to consume certain adult content without any repercussions, okay? Now, nobody wants to ban the adult content these days, right? When I say adult, I mean like adult movie content, all right? But back in the day, you were a free speech crusader if you were for making sure people could watch anything that they wanted to watch. And this is, well before the days of easy online access of this material. And even though they were arguing for kind of an immoral thing, saying that, hey, we should have the right to do this, I supported their argument because it's whatever they want to do. It's their eyes, it's their whatever they want to read and consume. That's up to them. Nowadays, we're being told that you can't see this. You can't hear this opinion. As crazy as Alex Jones is, why would you? Don't you stoke the curiosity of people by telling people you can't see him or watch him? Same with Trump. I mean, I want to know what Trump is tweeting. I don't want Trump banned from Twitter, okay? Twitter, Trump could go over to Gab and that entire platform would blow up if he did something like that. But the point being is that I want to know what Donald Trump is saying. And Kamala Harris is basically saying, no, he shouldn't have the right to say it. And Tulsi Gabbard is free speech, and even Elizabeth Warren thinks it's silly. Maybe she understands that, banning people is not going to help her campaign by throwing that out there, because everything's calculated with Elizabeth Warren. With Tulsi Gabbard, she's been saying this stuff from the get-go, and she's been the free speech candidate ever since she's gotten in. And this is where you get these nutty accusations. Oh, she's a centrist. She's really a stealth Trump person, because she stands on the side of free speech. And we all know that there's two categories now, and this is so dangerous. And it's so Orwellian, and anyone can see it. When you start to say hate speech, okay? And they called it a hate crime or a thought crime in Orwell's day. It was a thought crime. I read the book. It's been a long time. But here we are. We are literally there. And do you want a presidential candidate who supports the right of free expression and ideas, even ideas that hurt your feelings, even ideas that are uncomfortable? Again, you got this. If you don't want to watch, it's fairly simple. You just click and it's over. Go for a walk. Hang with the family. Go listen to some music. Put some headphones on. I don't know. I don't know how to advise you on that. But it's getting really silly out there. I'll tell you what. The people who dislike Tulsi Gabbard, those people don't like free speech. They don't. And they'll tell you. I had a friend just on my music platform who was liberal. He said to me, I'm a liberal. And I said, well, at the time, I was kind of a libertarian. And I said, well, I'm more libertarian. And I would tweet things out like, I don't think free speech should be interrupted, and I think these people have a right to talk, and so forth. And he would say, I respectfully disagree. I'm like, you disagree with free speech? Yes, because some of it is hate speech. Okay, well, who decides what's hate speech and what's not hate speech? I mean, shouldn't we, in the marketplace of ideas, get to freely choose what we hear and not hear? And let me decide. You're telling me, as like this oligarch parent, basically, because that's what you're going to be, you're going to say, no, you can't watch this? Well, why was it okay back in the 1980s when, people wanted to see things that other people thought were morally repugnant, but I supported that idea because, hey, what am I going to do? Go into this guy's bedroom? That's funny. I don't care. As long as he doesn't bother me, I don't care what he's doing. And that's kind of a libertarian argument. And now we're coming to a place where it's becoming more authoritarian. Like, no, I'm going to decide. I'm going to decide what you can consume. And Tulsi Gabbard is the only candidate running. Not even Donald Trump. Donald Trump, wants to, go after certain news outlets for libel and so forth. And believe me, is it libelous what they do? Probably it is. All right. So, I don't know. Maybe you get stricter libel laws, but you can't ban it. You can't ban free speech. And this is essentially what Kamala Harris is saying here. So this could be, the next debate could end up being another cage match between Tulsi and Kamala. I was hoping, and maybe that's another reason Elizabeth Warren said not to banning Trump from Twitter, because Elizabeth Warren does not want to tangle with Tulsi Gabbard on stage. And if maybe she's doing this as a political calculation, I do not want the wrath of Gabbard, who certainly kneecapped Kamala Harris a bit. And Kamala is holding on. She's just like, holding on to the last bar before she falls off. And this is one last stupid Hillary Clinton-like thing where we're going to, influence the election, influence the outcome by not allowing people to see information that they should be allowed to see. And yes, I support Donald Trump's right to be on Twitter. And again, if you're a progressive commentator and those tweets went away, your livelihood would just dry up. So that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard. And I support Tulsi Gabbard 100%. As usual. She's even better on this than Bernie Sanders, because Bernie doesn't talk too much about free speech. He does talk about a lot of awful things, disgusting things that people say, and he hasn't ever come out and said, I think that should be banned, but he's not out there with freedom of speech. And you know how I know Tulsi is totally for free speech? Julian Assange, Edward Snowden, she fully supports those guys. And she supports the right of information that whistleblowers, real whistleblowers, not Ukrainian fake whistleblowers, she supports, especially in the case where our government is doing corrupt and awful things. We need to know about that. So that's how free speech kind of applies across the board. You ban one thing, and someone's going to say, you know what? You banned that, so we need to ban this, and then soon people are uninformed and are making choices based on media brainwashing, which these days for a lot of folks only requires a very light rinse. All right, so I'm done with this video. Go Tulsi Gabbard. She's just going to, I hope she just takes the gloves off in the next debate and swings for the fence, because we need Tulsi's voice all the way to the convention. See you soon.